Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Daily Gwei Refuel, where I recap the latest news in the Ethereum ecosystem. I'm your host, Anthony Sassano, and today is 23rd of August, 2023. Alright everyone, let's get into it. So I've been talking about this new Holesky public testnet over the last few weeks, and you all know by now that it's going live on September 15th, which is obviously the merge anniversary day. Now I did say, I think when I was covering this the past few times, that I wasn't sure if it was launching with the Denkun upgrade, and I'm pretty sure it is not. So from my understanding, you can see here that it is going to be launching basically as the merge, so up until the point of the merge, and then it will be hard forking 64 minutes after Genesis to Shapala. So it will be enabling the Shapala upgrade, and then there is no kind of like upgrades slated yet for Denkun on this testnet. Now, that may change. They may say, okay, well, we'll upgrade to Denkun, like, I don't know, a few days after the network's running or something like that. But it will definitely be upgraded to Denkun, obviously, before it goes live on mainnet there. So, and where I'm getting this information from is this GitHub repo, which you can go check out. I'll link it in the YouTube description below. But this is usually how these things go. They'll kind of launch, and they'll launch at some point in time, or kind of like some upgrade checkpoint. In this case, it is London or the merge upgrade. And then, as I said, Shapala will be forking 64 minutes, or will be enabled 64 minutes after Genesis. But yeah, you can go check this out. I'll link it in the YouTube description below for you to do so. All right, I mentioned, or I talked about Operation Solo Staker the other day, and today I came across a tweet that one of their validators has proposed the first Ethereum mainnet block using DVT technology, with solo stakers running from home. The block was proposed using Obel and Dapnode, making it not only successful, but easy. So kudos for that. I think that it's really cool to show that just the power of both Operation Solo Staker and obviously DVT technology as well. You guys know that I'm currently part of a cluster that's running Obel DVT technology. And basically, it's four of us running it in the cluster, and we attest the blocks, we propose blocks, we're part of sync communities just like any other validator, but all of us are running a piece of the validator, so to speak, I guess, it's not technically a piece, we're all running the same validator on our kind of, hardware here, but using that technology, it gives you more resilience, so that just, let's say, one person goes offline, the other three are online, the validator still keeps kicking along, and extra security and stuff like that as well there. So yeah, kudos to the Operation Solo Staker crew here for proposing a block today. It is random, obviously, it is not something that you can plan for, but great to see that went through smoothly. All right, so Eigenlayer's cap was actually raised yesterday. So Eigenlayer have this TVL cap in place, and I remember I mentioned this, I think like a week ago when they announced they were raising the cap. So they raised the cap to 100,000 LST tokens, and if one of the LST tokens was to reach 100,000, it would globally pause the entire kind of inflow. So stETH reached 100,000 quite quickly, actually. And if I bring up this dashboard from Nethermind, that's at restaking.nethermind.io, you can actually see how fast the cap was reached here. So you can see that stETH is at 100,000, rETH is at about 20,000, and cbETH is about 21.4 thousand, with normal just beacon chain ETH being at 13.8. K here. Now, as I said, because stETH reached 100K, there's a global pause, so they're not taking any more inflows right now. But the funny thing is that gas fees actually spiked yesterday on Ethereum L1 because of Eigenlayer restaking. Now, I noticed this because basically I saw on my block native extension that you can see here, this is the block native gas extension. I saw this number go from the usual 15 or whatever we see to 150. And I'm like, oh, okay, something's spiking gas. I wonder what that could be. And I went to the Ultrasound Money website, and I'll show you how I do this actually. You can go to the Ultrasound Money website. And you can bring this up here and go down, and you can actually sort underneath the burn category here by time. So what I usually do is I go, okay, well, what was burning the most ETH in the last hour? And then up the top here, it showed the Eigenlayer Strategy Manager contract, which is the contract that everyone deposits to in order to get into restaking here. And it was just wild to me that Eigenlayer has just so much demand right now. I know that there's a lot of, I guess, like airdrop farming going on with this, where people are essentially just depositing their funds in. They're not getting anything for it, mind you. None of the Eigenlayer services are live. There's no yield to be had. But essentially, they're getting in first because they want to farm the airdrop. And I don't blame them for doing this, right? But the demand is just insane. I mean, if you go to the actual restaking dashboard here and add up add all of this up, that's 100 and what 58 or sorry 154, I think, if I'm doing the math correctly, thousand ETH that has been I guess deposited into these contracts that is really doing nothing right now. It's 54,000, I guess, like staked ETH. But if you were to times that by like the current price, I'm just doing that on my other screen here. It's 2.5. I think if I'm doing this correctly, it is $254 million. Yeah, $254 million. So $250 million has been deposited into these contracts that is earning nothing right now. So that's $250 million that's essentially trying to farm an airdrop, I think. I don't think it's worth sugarcoating this and saying that people are just really excited to start restaking and everyone's depositing because they want to be first to run this software and anything like that. I do think a lot of it is airdrop farming, but I think that's okay because when you think about it like this, like, okay, a lot of it is airdrop farming, but what's the kind of, I guess, conclusion here? Like, what is the actual goal here? Well, the goal here for Eigenlayer, at least, is to bootstrap a validator set, right? It's to bootstrap security for these Eigenlayer services. And of course, there'll be a yield for that in some capacity. So I just think it's overall pretty cool to see this and pretty cool to see these inflows because of that. But at the same time, I understand for a lot of people, they see this and they're like, wow, okay, the demand for restaking is just absolutely massive and the TVL caps just get reached so quickly. And it kind of begs the question of like just how big this thing is going to be. Is the majority of these LST tokens just going to be put into restaking? Where will it cap out at? Naturally, not based on a hard cap that the team has put in place, but like a natural cap. What are the Eigenlayer services going to look like? What are the slashing conditions going to be on these services? There's a lot of open questions around this, but as I've maintained for quite a while now, since I even first started talking about Eigenlayer and saw people being concerned about it, what I've maintained is that we're not going to get the answer to any of these questions until we see it play out in a live environment, right? You can speculate all you want, you can theorize all you want, but you're not going to get a concrete result unless you actually see it, or concrete data unless you actually see it play out on the mainnet live network, which is exactly what we're going to be seeing over the next few years at least. And I do understand people's concerns with restaking generally, but we're going to have to just see it play out. And it will inform a lot of decisions that I think the core protocols and researchers make in terms of kind of hardening the protocol as well. I personally don't think that the protocol is at risk from restaking at this point in time, because as I've mentioned before, there are in-protocol things that Ethereum can do in order to protect itself, but also there's that withdrawal queue that protects it from any kind of like mass unstaking event or anything like that. I do understand that people have concerns around validators potentially going offline, but I don't think that would be the case, at least for the foreseeable future, because essentially this restaked ETH, unless it's being directly withdrawn from the beacon chain, the validators have no reason to go offline because the validators aren't getting slashed. What's getting slashed is the ETH on the Eigenlayer network, whatever it is, whatever service that they're restaking a part of here. And if that results in a validator withdrawal because it needs to be withdrawn in order to recoup the ETH that was kind of slashed, then that would go ahead, but it's still limited by the withdrawal queue, and that validator would unwind gracefully, because the validators themselves are run by the LST providers, right? For example, Rocket Pool with all the node operators, Lido's node operators, Coinbase's operators here, and also just solo stakers generally as well. So yeah, as I said, I'm not too concerned at this stage, but I understand people's concerns, and at the end of the day, we're just going to see this play out in real time over the next few years. All right, some big news out of the Farcaster ecosystem today. So Farcaster announced, well, Dan Romero, one of the founders of Farcaster here, announced that Farcaster will be moving to the OP mainnet. So he says here, many of our most active users and developers are building on the OP stack across OP mainnet, Base, and Zora. We're also excited about Optimism's strong commitment to open source and OP mainnet identity initiatives like the EAS, or Ethereum Attestation Service, which is a service that I've talked about a lot on the Refuel before. You can go check them out as well. But what does this look like in practice? What does it mean for Farcaster to move to OP mainnet? Well, Dan Romero put another tweet out where he basically showed us what the Farcaster stack looks like with Optimism. So essentially, You have the app as the top of the stack here, whether you're interacting with Farcaster using Warpcast or Jam or Yup, or any other app out there that gets built for it. That's the kind of app layer. Then there are the data APIs. So these are the things that serve the data to you, or serve it to the clients, which serves it to you. And this is Hubble, which is a fast and simple implementation of a Farcaster hub in TypeScript and Rust. I'm pretty sure that this will be permissionless to run. I think this is what I covered the other day. Usernames are powered by ENS. You can actually set your username on Farcaster, your actual username, not just the handle, to your ENS. And I have mine currently set to sassel.eth, of course, which is awesome. And then all of the account data and state will be on OP mainnet. So that's where OP comes in. This is what the Farcaster stack looks like right now. But what a huge win for the OP stack again, guys. Like, I mean, they've been killing it lately. You know, what's funny is that for a long time, I think Arbitrum had the leg up on Optimism. If we're talking about layer 2s that have been around for a while and layer 2s that are optimistic rollups, Arbitrum had the leg up on Optimism for a while, but Optimism seems to have caught up pretty nicely lately with their OP stack because they have a bunch of different teams building layer 2s, building rollups using the OP stack. Now, of course, it remains to be seen what this kind of trend looks like going forward, what the super chain is actually going to look like, what it actually looks like from a decentralization perspective as well, because as you guys know, the OP stack doesn't have fraud proofs or validity proofs or anything right now, so it's still very centralized and not that secure. But I think that that's a temporary thing. I think that's definitely going to be solved in the near future. And I've been using Farcaster quite regularly, as you guys know. I've been trying to tweet there, or I guess I cast there, and I've been trying to kind of use that in conjunction with Twitter. I'm still more active on Twitter, definitely, but I think that's a habit thing where I just need to build up the habit for Farcaster as well. But given that I personally think that decentralized social media is, let me take a step back here. I think that the infrastructure is finally ready for decentralized social media to actually have a shot of taking off. And that's exactly what we're seeing here with Farcaster migrating to the OP stack. They wouldn't be able to migrate to Ethereum mainnet. It wouldn't work. The gas fees would be way too high, right? And it would be way too clunky for them because obviously, it's slower to do anything on mainnet as well. 12-second blocks versus basically instant soft confirmations on these layer 2s. So the UX is a lot better for users out there. But it's not just obviously using a layer 2, using the OP stack, or using OP mainnet, I should say. It's using the ENS kind of service as well for usernames, and it's using its own implementation called Hubble here, where anyone can run that. So I really do think that we're finally at the point where the infrastructure is in place for us to get decentralized social media apps that actually make sense, that actually work, and it couldn't come at a better time in my mind. I think that Twitter, honestly, I'm kind of scared about Twitter sometimes, where I think to myself, you know, what does the next few years of Twitter look like? It is woefully unprofitable, right? I don't think Elon has done a very good job with it at all. I think that there's a lot of decisions being made that basically weaken the platform overall. And so, okay, what is the logical conclusion of that? What is the conclusion of Elon's vision of this, like this X app that he's now trying to do, actually not working? Does he sell Twitter to someone else, right, or some other company? Okay, in that instance, what happens to Twitter then? Like, what does that company do? Do they just harvest as much user data as they can and slowly wind down Twitter as a platform itself? Does Elon essentially let his ego go to his head and just basically let Twitter die because he'd rather let it die than give it to someone else or sell it to someone else, because obviously selling it now would be worth a lot less than what he bought it for. I mean, he bought it for what, $45 billion or something like that? I would really struggle to see how Twitter would be able to command a valuation anywhere close to that. And I would say that probably at this point in time, it's worth 5-10 billion, maybe something like that. I mean, that's just numbers that I can think of based on a number of different kind of things that I've seen. But the point of what I'm saying here isn't to FUD Twitter. You guys know I'm a religious Twitter user. It's not to FUD Elon Musk or anything like that. My point is that I'm so happy that we have alternatives, because I know we have something like Threads from Instagram or from Meta, I guess, but that again is centralized, right? That again is not a crypto native thing. It obviously hasn't worked at this stage because people can still use Twitter. And really, those are just the two alternatives in the centralized, or two platforms in the centralized world. You have Twitter and you have Threads, but then we have these decentralized alternatives, not just Farcaster, but we also have Lens as well. And I think there's one other thing out there that I've seen floating around that wants to do something similar here. So if Twitter was to go offline tomorrow, I would hope that all of the people on crypto Twitter, or a lot of them, would migrate to something like Farcaster instead of something like Threads. And I think they would, because Farcaster is actually pretty much all crypto natives at this point. It has been invite only, and that's going away, I think, in hopefully October or November, where it'll be open to everyone. But generally, I would say that if Twitter was to go offline right now, I think a lot of people would migrate across to Farcaster. Now, whether they could handle the load or not is another question, but I'm just so glad we have an alternative that is at least trying to be decentralized and has a goal of being decentralized, but is also a crypto native solution to this problem here. So kudos to the Farcaster team for this. Excited for the future as we continue to build out this new, I guess, like decentralized social media stack that we're doing right now. All right, so a big announcement out of the StarkWare ecosystem today. They are open sourcing their powerful Stark prover codenamed Stone here. So you can see here next week during Starknet Summit, they will have intro sessions to the prover's code as well. There is a full detailed blog post here for you guys to check out, which I'll link in the YouTube description below. But this will be open sourced under the Apache 2.0 license here. And the TLDR is basically that open sourcing the prover is a major step forward in decentralizing Starknet. It will boost collaboration and innovation and enable devs to observe, optimize, and use the prover's code, preferably for the good of public Starknet. So this is exciting because, as I've said to you guys before, in the past, I would really love to run these things for the L2s. I'd really love to run a prover, a validator, potentially a sequencer, all that stuff on the hardware that I have right now that's running my solo validators, right? That is running my Rocket Pool validators. I have so much hardware that's online right now, and I want to put it to use because a lot of it is actually overkill. My solo staking box is completely overkill for solo validators. So I'm thinking to myself, okay, well, can I use it for something else? And I can use it to run L2 validators and sequences and provers. Now, provers are pretty hardware hungry. Basically, they use a lot of RAM and a lot of GPU power, of course, but that's coming down over time as well, and it's definitely not something that's going to be heavy to run for too long into the future. So I'm just excited to run all of these things on my own locally, and it will be open to anyone because it'll be open source. So that's great to see here. But yeah, if you want more details about this, I'll link StarkWare's blog post in the YouTube description below for you to check out. All right, so speaking of optimism before, Shutter, Project Shutter, or the Shutter network, which I've highlighted on the review before, they're building, or at least trying to build solutions for encrypted mempools, has actually been building a shielded mempool or encrypted mempool using threshold encryption for the OP stack. So they've said here, we're happy to let you know that we've completed the first 2 deliverables of our Optimism OP grants, and you can read more about that in the blog here. So this is basically an update on them building a encrypted mempool for the OP stack, which I wasn't aware of before, actually. I must have missed this when they first announced it. But this is awesome because I remember highlighting to you guys what exactly the concept of a shutterized beacon chain was, or the concept of an encrypted mempool was. It was basically so that validators or MEV boost relays or anything that kind of builds blocks or proposes blocks could so builds blocks, I should say, can have plausible deniability about the transactions that they're actually including into a block. Because when you encrypt the transactions in a block, it basically means that the transactions are not seen. You don't know what those transactions are until they're actually proposed as part of a block. Now, as I said, the reason why you would want this is because it allows for even greater censorship resistance, because then, as I said, you could have plausible deniability. There is no way for you to know what's going into a block because it's been encrypted, right? Because it's been basically hidden from view until it's actually included in a block, which helps with things like the censorship that we've seen because of the Tornado Cash sanctions and all that good stuff there. So if you want to read more details about that from the Shutter Network team, they have a blog post here discussing it in the context of the OP stack and what they've achieved to date. So I'll link this in the YouTube description below for you to check out. All right, Jesse Polak, the lead dev at the Base project, has put out a tweet today, just as like a PSA to everyone, that you can instantly bridge to and from Base in the Coinbase app or on Coinbase.com for less than 10 cents. This is the cheapest and fastest way to move on and off. Lots more instant on and off ramps coming soon. Now, this is amazing because 10 cents is so cheap, guys, and this is going to get cheaper over time. Like, imagine you have a few $100s and you want to bridge it into Base. and you don't want to have to go through Ethereum L1 to do that, or you want to bridge it into L2s, you don't have to go through Ethereum L1. Going to Ethereum L1 would cost you a lot, right? But first, you'd have to withdraw it to Ethereum L1, and exchanges may charge you for that. And then you'd have to send it from L1 to L2, which would cost you probably a couple of dollars or something like that. And then you would have to wait as well for that bridging to happen, which doesn't really take too long. It can take like 10 minutes or something like that. It's not too long. But with direct bridging from the Coinbase app or Coinbase.com, it's near instant, I think, or very, very quick. And it costs less than 10 cents. And I'm pretty sure that's going to be down to less than 1 cent post EIP 4844. And that's just overall a much better user experience for everyone, not just for people who can afford the gas fees on layer 1. I mean, why would you? Even if you can afford the layer 1 gas fees, and even if your size is size and the gas fees on layer 1 doesn't bother you, why would you go that route if you could just go instantly from the Coinbase app or Coinbase.com to Base? It costs you nothing, and it's much faster than going the L1 route. Everyone would pick that, I think, 99% of the time. Maybe the 1% of the time you won't pick that is when you want to basically have the maximum security possible. But honestly, if you're going from Coinbase already into Base, there's no point going to L1 first and then to Base, because essentially it's still ending up at the same place, right? So yeah, I just wanted to highlight that for you guys, for any of you Coinbase users out there, that it is extremely cheap to bridge into Base. So if you haven't done so yet, you can do it using Coinbase.com or the Coinbase app. All right, so an exciting announcement out of Risc Zero today, which I think confused a bunch of people, and I'm not going to say that I totally understand exactly what they've released today, but the reason it's exciting is because it's more ZK tech for us to play around with. So what do they introduce? Well, they introduced something called Zeth, which is a fully open source type 0 zkEVM. So they say here, built on the Risc Zero zkEVM and Bonsai, a zkEVM, not EVM. Zeth is a performant, upgradable, and scalable way for developers to zk-prove any Ethereum block, ushering in the next generation of zk and EVM. So you can read the thread for full breakdown on what this actually means. But from my understanding, the reason why they're calling this a Type 0 zkEVM is because essentially the types that we have right now are built in the L2 context. So what Risc Zero is saying here is that Zeth is actually a zkEVM based on Ethereum L1. So it's essentially one-to-one with Ethereum L1, and you could build an L1 zkEVM that is basically a clone of Ethereum using Zeth, or you can use Zeth to build a clone of Ethereum as an L2, a zkEVM, on L2, right, as a roll-up. And you can use their technology to kind of do that here. So I think, from my understanding, that's what they're doing here. And essentially, that's why they're calling this a Type 0, even though there was some drama around the naming here. But yeah, as I said, you can read the full thread here for a breakdown on exactly what this entails here, and also, as I said, I'm not completely up to speed with this. I'm not completely to the point where I can explain this like I'm 5. But the explanation I just gave is definitely what I've kind of I guess like gauged from talking to different people in the ecosystem, and kind of reading through the posts myself. So you can go check this all out. I'll link it in the YouTube description below for you to do so. All right, so a bit of a maybe, I don't know if this was controversial take on Twitter today, but I put out a tweet where I said, out of all the L1s, I think that BSC, Binance Smart Chain, and Tron make the most sense to become an Ethereum L2. They keep their existing ecosystems while no longer having to deal with all the overhead that comes with maintaining an L1, such as consensus overhead, extra costs, lack of scalability, and more. So for those of you who don't know, both BSC and Tron are literally just forks of Ethereum, forks of Geth. BSC has a lot of usage. Tron has a lot of usage, but for different reasons. BSC is extremely popular in Asia. It has a lot of Asian users because it was basically pumped by Binance, and Binance had a lot of Asian users, so they onboarded people onto BSC. Tron, on the other hand, is very popular in South America or the Global South. They do a lot of stablecoin volumes, and actually based on a variety of metrics, Tron is the second most used blockchain after Ethereum because it is used so frequently for stablecoin payments. And you may ask, okay, well, why is it used so frequently for stablecoin payments? Because it's much cheaper. It is, I mean, let's not sugarcoat it here. Both BSC and Tron are centralized, right? But it's very cheap. It's EVM. It's got wide acceptance across a variety of different exchanges, right? It is one of the biggest networks out there, so it is de facto accepted by pretty much every exchange, and it has a network effect of liquidity there for USDT or Tether, for example. So, okay, well, what good does it make for them to become an L2? Well, I mean, really, they can still exist exactly the same as they are now. They just get rid of all the garbage that comes with an L1. As I said, consensus overhead is a huge one, right? Coming to consensus on blocks is very heavy, and obviously it being a fork of Geth, all that these networks have done is basically just cranked up the gas limit, and BSC has actually had a lot of problem with state management, generally. So I think that pretty much all goes away if you become an L2, right? And then your costs go down because of that. You can scale more, obviously, because a layer 2 allows you to scale a lot more than a layer 1 does, especially if your layer 1 is just based on, Ethereum itself, right? So taking all that into account, I do think we'll see one of, if not both of these ecosystems become a layer 2. I think maybe it's more likely that BSC becomes a layer 2 because they've been experimenting with it already. I know there's OpBNB, which is like a fork of the OP mainnet on BSC. Didn't really make much sense to me why they would do that. But I think that might be a testing ground for them to eventually convert BSC into a layer 2 on Ethereum. Tron, I don't know. I mean, I think Justin Sun doesn't actually understand much of what he's doing when it comes to this stuff. I think that he is more of a follower than a leader. Definitely a follower than a leader. He loves to copy everyone, right? So I would assume that if BSC became a layer 2, Tron would probably follow. But at the same time, I think there's already a trend of a lot of these L1s becoming L2s, that Tron could become an L2 just to follow that trend, especially if it leads to a sustained pump in the tokens of those networks that transition to an L2. Because Justin Sun, from my experience, likes to do these things to pump the TRX token, of course. Now, in saying all of this, I have been extremely critical of Tron, specifically in the past. I have said in the past that I thought it was a grift and a borderline scam, a lot of misleading marketing, all that stuff there, and it is. But I'm not going to basically not acknowledge the fact that people are still using it and getting value out of it, right? And I would much rather these networks be an L2 on Ethereum, because it's actually easy for them to decentralize as an L2 on Ethereum and have provable decentralization because they can just decentralize the bridge on the L1 essentially and have an escape hatch in case the L2 goes offline or anything like that. And then essentially they become just like any other kind of L2 out there, something like an Arbitrum 1, right, which has fraud proofs and stuff like that. So yeah, we'll see how that goes. We'll see if that actually happens. But just a bit of background on that tweet that I put out today, because I know it was a little bit controversial. All right, so this basically came out just as I was basically going into bed last night, so about an hour after I recorded the refuel. But Balancer, unfortunately, had received a critical vulnerability report affecting a number of V2 Balancer pools here. But fortunately, emergency mitigation procedures were executed because it was a white hat that reported this vulnerability, and a majority of the TVL was secured, with only some funds remaining at risk. So if you want to learn more about if you were affected by this as an LP and which funds were at risk, you can check out the blog post that Balancer published, or I guess like go to the site here that Balancer put together, which is a recovery exit site, and you can check if you're affected there. But I do want to applaud Balancer for the way they handled this exploit. They received the white hat, I guess, tip. They implemented emergency mitigation procedures in order to secure as much TVL as possible, and then they did a responsible disclosure all at once for the wider ecosystem in order to help the wider ecosystem and the affected LPs recover from this. And they also built a tool to do that here, this proportional exit tool, which I don't know if it existed before, but yeah, there's this tool here to make it easy for people to check if they were affected and then exit from the affected pools here, which is awesome. It's just amazing. I mean, yeah, you can see here, this tool was created to facilitate user exits from pools at risk to the vulnerability described in this Twitter thread here, or I guess like tweet and blog post here, which I'll link in the YouTube description below. So just a massive kudos to Balancer for how they handled this. One of the best, I think, handlings of a vulnerability that I have seen ever in this industry, to be honest. So just wanted to give some praise there to the Balancer team. All right, so I came across this new Twitter account today. I don't know if they're new or they've been around for a while, but they're new to me, called Snowball Tools. And what they're building is basically the future of crypto mobile, as they've described it here. So they're building something that enables no more passwords, no more seed phrases, no more extensions, and no more bouncing between apps. You can try them out at iglotools.xyz, and they say here all you need to do is create a passkey, mint an Iglo NFT on Girly or Sepolia, and they'll sponsor the gas. So you can see here I've got this loaded up in front of my screen. You can click create a new passkey, name your passkey. I'm just going to name this TTG. Create passkey. It's registering. It's asking me here. You can go Windows Hello or external security key. I'm probably not going to do that live on stream because I haven't done this yet. But I just wanted to show you guys what it actually does. Right? It creates a passkey in the browser using security from whatever you're running. I'm running Windows obviously here, and then it will create the passkey for you, and then you can just mint an NFT here in order to and get the gas sponsored. Now, maybe I'll do it in my other screen just because I don't know what's going to pop up, so I don't want anything that's gonna dox me or anything popping up here. So I'm going to click here, and I'm going to put in this here, and then I'm going to see if this creates it here. I'm just running through the registering of the passkey again on my other screen here, and following the prompts in order to do that. So yeah, wallet created. Okay, cool. So I can bring the tab back over here for you guys. I can click log in to start. You'll need to authenticate. Okay, it's asking me to authenticate again. Oh, okay, this doesn't pop up for you guys on screen, which is nice. I can just put in the authentication method here, and then yeah, I think that once that kind of runs through it, it's going a little bit slow so far. I guess that's to be expected given this is on testnet and very early version. Just waiting here. I don't know how long this is going to take, by the way, guys. But yeah, I mean, you can read the thread here for a full breakdown of exactly what they're doing here and how they're actually enabling this with their software. It's quite a lengthy thread as well. They're using things like account abstraction. They're using things similar to, I guess, like what was used by Friendtech, like different things here, and different kind of different wallet providers, and you can see the SDKs that they support and everything there. Yeah, okay, cool. I've got my ETH Smart Wallet here, and you can view this on Etherscan. This is my public key, and this is an ERC4337 wallet. So basically, mint a free Iglo NFT. Okay, I'll click mint NFT and see what this does right now. So it's minting it. Yeah, if you stay with us on this page as your Iglo NFT is being minted on chain. Okay, I'm gonna stay with them on this page and see how long this takes. Maybe I'll give it a few seconds here because I'm way over time on the refill today. So yeah, and I don't want to bore you guys with details here. But yeah, you can go check this out. I'll link it in the YouTube description below for you to do so. And while this NFT is minting, actually, I'm going to talk about the last thing I wanted to talk about and just briefly touch on. I put a tweet out today where I said there are currently two types of people left in crypto right now. There are those that are quietly stacking their favorite assets and enjoying the tech innovation side of the industry, you know, your casual Daily Gwei Refuel enjoyer. And then there are those coping and seething in the replies to everyone's tweets about how prices are stagnant. The second type is simply not going to make it. Honestly, I hate that second type so much. There are so many of those that reply to my tweets, and I've gotten to the point now where I basically just insta-block them most of the time because it is so tiring reading the same old garbage. You know, I made a tweet today about how the burn is bullish for ETH because of such and such reason. You probably saw the tweet. And then someone replied and basically said, yeah, but it's done nothing for the price. I'm so sick of those comments because one, they're wrong. Two, I mean, the short-sightedness of these people just really annoys me. And three, it really just shows that these people don't actually understand what they're talking about and really aren't in it for the tech or innovation side of this industry. So they're not my people, so to speak, right? So yeah, just wanted to highlight that tweet there and give a little bit of extra context. But you guys are going to make it because you're in it for the tech and innovation and you're stacking for the long term, which is obviously something that I've preached for a long time now. So yeah, anyway, just want to check in on my NFT. There we go. I minted the NFT on Girly. As you saw, all I had to do was click a button, right? I didn't actually have to confirm anything. There was no pop-up that came up for me. I didn't have to spend any gas, obviously, because it's on testnet, but it all happened in the background. And now I can view the NFT on OpenSea if I want. If I click OpenSea here, yeah, there it is. That's really cool. Guys, the future of the UX, UI of crypto is being built right before our eyes. Don't sleep on it. I'll link the Iglo stuff in the YouTube description below for you to check out. But as I said, gone over time, so that's going to be it for today's episode. So thank everyone for listening and watching. Be sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. Give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the newsletter, join the Discord channel, and I'll catch you all tomorrow. Thanks, everyone.